Welcome to the Big Cat Lounge podcast, where we interview guests in a casual lounge setting from all over the world, sharing their insights one story at a time. We can be found on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, iHeartRadio, and much more. Please rate and subscribe to our show to stay updated on the Big Cat Lounge. Thank you so much for tuning in.
So thanks for having me, Kyle. My name is Clinton Walker, and I currently reside in the UK. And I run a cybersecurity business, and I'm an entrepreneur at heart, really. So I've got lots of side gigs in relation to food business, food products around condiments. So it will be your barbecue sauce, your table sauce, and marinade, etc. I also invest in startups from a Kickstarter perspective. So I'm not a heavy hitter, so to speak, in terms of investment, but I dabbled in a few startups in terms of funding and investing in startups and stocks.
Mm-hmm. And what got you into the cybersecurity arena? Was that something that was of your passion?
Yes, I was always fascinated with technology, and as I got older, I kind of something happened where I saw that it was going to be a big thing, and at one point when I was at college, because I got a scholarship for just to continue my studies from another college in Jamaica. So from one college to another, I was doing business and IT. And when I got this scholarship to start at this new college in the UK, I was really just curious and was playing around on the network and watching how people were operating. And these guys, some of the other guys who are very, very much talented more than I was, they were pinging each other on the network and communicating and seeing what's on people's computers. Like, wow, how do you guys do that? So I kind of find a way to start doing the same thing. And my approach was a bit more unorthodox, where I tried to really see what else can I do apart from just communicate and ping, and started to look at documents and peruse their drives and file system in the background. I was like, wow, this needs to be tightened up. And this was in the library in a college, you see. So it was quite shocking at the time. But at that point, I was like, would I want someone to actually do this to me? And from there, I really started to look more into cybersecurity. And I pivoted from my studies from business and IT to really start expressing a lot more interest in cybersecurity. And that at that time, there wasn't a lot of universities around, or popularity around cybersecurity qualification wasn't that huge. So I continued my studies, and I researched, and I saw, whilst I was doing my first degree, I saw this security analyst role that came up, and it was a fixed term for a year. And I was like, wow, this would be good to give me some hands-on industry expertise and experience in what cybersecurity is really about. And I applied for it, and I was successful. And from there, really, it was just one step at a time, and gaining one qualification after the other, more experience in other areas. So my passion really started from discovering that you could do some really serious stuff with access to people's systems without them knowing. From that point, when I started in the library, I'm starting to ping other people's computers and looking at files, etc. But as I said, I've always been in IT from even back home in Jamaica. So I think the interest grew and grew to this point where it's like, wow, there's something here, and the future is going to be a lot more chaotic when this becomes a big thing. And
Correct.
Indeed it did.
Yeah, and I think now more so than ever, it's just like a lack of cybersecurity awareness. You don't know until it hits you. And I think we just need to continue to educate ourselves with resources, because, you know, if you're a small business, you're just focusing all your attention on running your business. You're not necessarily thinking about cybersecurity. So it's just, I think we just all need to be more educated and have more resources on the topic itself.
Work with hundreds and loads of them over the years, and their main 101 is awareness. And I've seen it. And again, you can have awareness and insight and knowledge shared, but again, user behavior, it comes back to user behavior, right? So you can educate someone and give them awareness of something, but if it never really happened to them, if they never experience a breach, they will always push it aside because it's never happened to me before. And as a small business owner as well, you know, the mentality is that, right, I need to make some money and I need to get this job done. And especially if you got a small team, you inevitably is doing pretty much everything from admin, from HR, recruitment, finance, everything. So your focus on that diminishes. And that's where small businesses really is at a loss or on the back foot, so to speak, when it comes to cybersecurity. And they can have all the awareness and support in the world, and it comes back down to their behavior and their appetite for risk, because there's a cost to cybersecurity. So whether it be a cost for implementation, a cost for awareness, a cost for maintaining those security controls and standards. So if you're spending money and it's not bringing you a return physically to show and reflect on your bank account, that's money down the drain. And that's the psychology of some people and even boards as well. But it's an investment and a protection of your future, depending on how you look at it.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that hacking is a numbers game? It's a matter of time before, you know, everyone will be exposed to it?
That's a great point. Yes, and I think if you're really seasoned and have some insight into how cybersecurity works and hacking and controls, you take on the mentality that it's not a matter of if, it's when it becomes public.
Yeah.
I assume breach and operate and behave as if you are breached, right? So yes, there are breach that occurs or hack that occur that we just don't know until it hits the headlines, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, that's a great point, and I think a lot of businesses are a bit lackadaisical in that respect and think that, well, we can't see any anomalies on the system, and I don't think we've been hacked. But it's like, really? What makes you think that you're not hacked? And what makes you think that your network power and resources aren't being used collectively with other similar businesses to actually launch an attack on another bigger target? Because that's what some of the hackers do, right? They harvest the data, find a way to use it against you, or depending on the power and resources that you've got, they really collate that and really put it together with a bunch of other businesses, especially when it comes to bandwidth and doing, for example, something like a denial of service attack other businesses or other victims. So it's not a matter of, oh, have we been hacked? It's a matter of, let's look into it and check and do this proactive approach to managing and looking for security breach.
And how would you say we can keep up with all the new and emerging threats that continue to come about? You know, there's new strategies every day, I'm sure, that they're trying to implement. So what can we do to stay up atop of the newest knowledge?
Well, we don't know what we don't know, right? So again, it comes back to that foundation of awareness, and awareness is key. Awareness brings clarity and actionable intel, right? So look at what's going on your network. So most of it will be around tools that you may have. So if you got the right tools in place to monitor traffic and analyze traffic on your network or on your systems, that gives you an early warning and an early heads up in terms of what you physically cannot see with your eyes or do at the time. So if you got monitoring systems, there's lots of tools out there that can be used to really set off alarms to say, hey, something is happening on the network here at this time. It's an anomaly. We don't normally expect this. And the other attack that goes under stealth mode as well. So you can keep up with lots of those things. You can subscribe to threat intelligence portal and threat intelligence journals that really helps you to look at and share knowledge around emerging threats that occur. And then there's no point in being aware and you're not actively implementing what your awareness is bringing to you, right? So you need to have other processes and procedures internally in terms of how to react and respond to a threat. So you look at that, the process of detect, deter, and action, remediate, review, and you start all over again, right? So that's the classic approach, really, that some companies use. They use different phrases or different terminologies, but really detect, evaluate, review, remediate, etc. You keep that cycle going. Especially in respect of zero-day attacks, zero-day attacks, as the name suggests, it's happening now. It's new. No system's ever seen it, or your system just haven't been able to pick that up given the signature of that attack. So once you have those processes in place internally, you can respond quickly and isolate and interrogate those network traffic and issues that are really targeting you.
Yeah, it's just, I guess, like a lot of people are, opening up, new domain names and opening up new websites, and maybe like the standard is like GoDaddy, and they have some resources for you, but is that really sufficient enough to protect your website, or what else should we be doing?
It's not necessarily sufficient. So it's if I just give an analogy here, right? So I could be I could be a landlord, right? And I make sure that the house is adequately secure. It's got all the compartments or everything for you. So you got a kitchen, you got a bathroom, you got a separate shower area, you got a living room, you got a bedroom, right? However you do things in those compartmentalized area, it's up to you. They just provide that platform and that service, and to a level for them, they pretty much make sure that they've done enough to cover them from a terms and conditions perspective. And the rest is up to you and how you connect things into the house, for example. So they'll protect their infrastructure. So they know that it's got windows, doors, it's got locks on it. However strong those locks are, it's up to you to make sure that you put adequate locks there, depending on what and who you're going to have in that house. Imagine if you invite a celebrity around, right? You're going to need additional security, right? To make sure that you protect the perimeter, you protect that house and what's in it, because a celebrity is coming to town. So it's the same if you got a website, it's a high profile website, it's a banking website compared to just a blogging website. How do you provide security controls for each? They're two separate things, and the level of security and impact is different, right? Mm-hmm. So I would say for websites, for people with website, make sure that whenever you get a website built, you make sure that you've got HTTPS enabled, so it's a secure, it denotes that what website and the connection and communication with that website is secure and it's not transmitted in open clear text. If you got the resources, you can do what's called the ethical hacking or pen testing of that website before it goes live to make sure that there are no loopholes. So you're ahead of the game in terms of before you go live, you can see potentially what the hackers would potentially see before you go live, and you can work on that in a proactive manner. And you continue to do that periodically. So you do some scans, you do some tests, whether that be every month, every 3 months, every 6 months, or annually, depending on what that is. And make sure that If you're collecting data, you've got that encryption, extra layer of encryption there. If it's a portal that people tend to log on with, if you can enable two-factor authentication, that would also help you to secure whatever is behind that front edge of that website. And two-factor authentication is about something that you have and something you know. So it's sometimes you log into a system or a website with your username and password, and you get a ping on your phone to say, hey, use this other pin to move to the next stage, for example, in layman's terms.
Yeah. And if we're, a business, or even we have our personal emails like Gmail, Yahoo, I mean, those aren't even really secure these days. So, what can we do? I know they have policies in place where, they sell your data and they target you with ads. But what should we be doing for email to really have some security?
Email security, it's one of those ones, and I know that you'll probably be aware that Yahoo over a couple of years ago has been compromised, and a lot of people, Yahoo, Hotmail, most of them has been compromised over the last couple of years, whereby millions of people's email addresses were compromised. So from that, in that respect, if your email is with a hosting provider, there's not a lot you can do from their end to protect their system. But what you can do as an individual to make sure that you are maintaining adequate security for you and what your interaction is around your email is make sure that you don't deliberately disclose information, right? So for example, if you're emailing 20 people, make sure that you BCC those people so none of those individuals can see the rest of the 19 people, for example, because a lot of that can be used to harvest other people's email to spam you from there. Be careful of what you subscribe to online, because nowadays it's almost automatic that people wants to get freebies and news updates and new products and stuff coming out. If you're really not into that type of stuff, or it's not going to add any value to you, don't subscribe to it, because some of those subscriptions also sell on your data onto other third-party companies, which could also be compromised, and then they actually get a hold of your email and spam you from there. Now, another aspect around email security, which is very important at the moment, is around phishing. And phishing is predominantly via an email, right? So if you were to become a victim of phishing, or a victim of that stolen email, for example, and then these emails starting to come at you regularly, offering you things such as, hey, here's a free ticket to the Super Bowl, here's a free vouchers for your next shopping, because we noticed that you always shop on eBay or Amazon, etc. Please take a step back and think, did I actually subscribe to this, and where is this coming from? And really, really think hard if that's something that you want to engage in, because it's very tempting. Some of these people who created these phishing emails can be very creative, very professional. In the days, they were very slack in terms of their language and their tone and their spelling. So here are some things that your listeners could take away from phishing, that as it relates to email security and best practices. Whenever there's whenever there's a phishing email, or you're in doubt that it's a phishing email, really focus and look at the tone of language, right? The urgency. Is it pushing you to do something now? And is it causing fear of missing out? If you don't do it now, something is going to go wrong, because you're going to miss out on this deal, this experience, or this voucher. And what's the tone of it? Is it threatening? So you've got urgency, fear, and threat to look at in terms of the tone of language of that email. And then you start looking at the structure of the sentences and the communication in the email. Does it flow fluently? Because sometimes they just copy and paste stuff in, or their language English is not their first language, for example. Look at that, and that will give some telltale signs that is this official? Is it for phishing? Is it a phishing attack? And the other thing that you look at, as I said, the grammar there, of course, is part of the whole sentence structure, spelling mistakes, etc. Look at the logos, if they use any logos, because what they can do as well is they can actually spoof official website logo to trick you into make you think that they're from an official business such as a bank or the government agencies, for example. So look at those things, look at the quality of the image or the branding, etc. And the other thing, which is really the killer here, is there will be a link for you to click on or a button. Now, if you're on a laptop or a desktop computer and you've got a mouse, etc., you can mouse over and hover over that link. And what that will do is that link will show you at the bottom left corner of your system where that destination is taking you to, right? So if that looks really suspicious, do not click on it. And I'll also advise, do not click on it at all. If you can hop out of that email and go into your browser and try and Google or search or type in the URL itself, that is a safer way of doing it, right? Unless that destination URL is loaded with malware and it will get you anyway. But from an email perspective, do not click on any link. Hover over with your mouse and it will show you and tell you where, once clicked, where it's going to take you to. Now, this cannot be done on mobile devices such as iPods, tablets, and mobile phones, because it doesn't have that feature or that element where you can hover over a link. You can click on it, and that's where it's going to actually install things on your system. So please don't click on any link. And that's some of the email best practices as well, because I've seen some instances even in the last 2 weeks where over a couple of hundreds, I think it was over 300 plus emails were sent out to a friend of mine, and all of their other members of that email chain was in full display. You could just copy and paste and drop that into a spreadsheet and spam those other people. And some of these people were politicians, hedge fund people, and some influential people. So from an email perspective, those are some key top tips and best practice there for me.
Today's sponsor is Anchor FM app. Go download the free Anchor app today to get started. You can find it at your Play Store or App Store. It's everything you need to make a podcast, and it distributes everything for you so it can be heard on multiple platforms such as Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, and many more. This is what I'm currently using right now to edit and record my podcast, and you can do so from your phone or computer. And the tools are really easy to use to help document the Big Cat Lounge journey. So what are you waiting for? Go today and download it.
Are you familiar with identity theft services? And if so, do you think they work to safeguard against us, against anything being stolen?
Yes, I mean, I've come across those and I've worked with those services in the past. And some of them you subscribe to them and pay them for that, and they'll alert you as to when something happens to your account. So for example, one of them, some credit reference agency offers some of those protections, and there are other private entities that provide those services as well. And in a commercial setting for businesses, some of those companies provide tools, etc., for those. But it comes back down to it's always come back down to awareness and how those systems being used, right? And how trusted they are, because as we said earlier in the conversation, it's not a matter of when you'll be hacked. It's a case of are we a target here? Have we been hacked and we don't know? So if you look at the root of the system, and if somebody were to be in that system or identity solution or the identity system, you don't know what you don't know. But I think some of them out there are really good. I know that, as I said, credit reference agencies, just Experian, I know that they offer those services, and a lot of other companies such as KnowBe4, they offer some cool stuff around phishing and protection around identity and email issues. But every tool function differently, and there's a cost to some of those elements as well. So some of them are subscription services, some of them are one-off services as well. But from an identity theft perspective, it's just a matter of caution and look at whether or not that's fit for what you want to do from a business perspective and a personal perspective.
Tell us a little bit about what is required to be a board member, since you're a board member of several organizations.
What's required? That's a good question. So so before I got on some of these boards, I was always keen as well. And that was a question I always ask myself and ask other people, such as my mentors and just people who I know. I was like, what does it really take to be on the board, and what do you do being on a board, you know?
Yeah.
So in terms of what's required, or what someone can who's aspiring to be on a board can look at doing is, one, I'm a big fan of volunteering, right? So if you got an expertise in a particular area of interest that you think could be of value to that company, volunteer your time and reach out to people and ask them what it is, you know, and talk to people about their role. A lot of people, they love to talk about their role and how their role makes an impact, right? So network with other people who are in that space, and be clear on whether or not your personal beliefs and aspirations align with what that company is doing. So, for example, I'm on a security a board. I'm on a business and government, such a joint venture partnership with both businesses and government. And I'm one of those boards that looks at really how to help the community, the business community, and help them to improve the way they service the wider community and the city on a whole. So being on a board, it's about bringing in new insights, experience, and being that critical friend, and knowing when to challenge the strategy and the status quo, whether it be from a financial perspective in terms of their spending, or any other strategy that they're looking at, really, because they want you to be a critical friend, and that critical friend is to help them to see what they couldn't or wouldn't normally see based on your perspective and expertise that you bring to the table. So there are a lot of companies out there that also offer the services of what they call non-executive directors. So if you were to search for NED, N-E-D, whether it be .com.co.uk or NED Networks, you'll find a lot of job, or just type into Google how to become a board member or non-executive board member. There are a lot of organizations that are always hiring, and it is actually easier than most people thought, really, because there's a lot of not-for-profit businesses that always are looking for trustees and board members to help push their cause forward, and they look for people of diverse background to bring a different flavor, different insights, different thought processes into the mix of their strategy to better serve their community and their audience, really. So Google how do I become a NED? And there's a lot of not-for-profit, and you can start from there. Some of the boards don't pay; they just pay for expenses. Some of them actually pay you a decent salary, and I know some of people in my networks, they make decent money by just being on board. They do nothing else but being on board for multiple organizations, and they add value and expertise in their area of interest to really enrich and further the cause of those companies. I hope I answered that properly.
Yes, yes, you did. This brings us to the quote of the day by Shaquille O'Neal. It's not about how much money you make. The question is, are you educated enough to keep it? So that's something for us to ponder upon.
That's so true. because getting something is always, in some cases, depending on what that is, it's easy to get it, right? And I always say to even my staff and my colleagues and the guys who I help mentor, it's great to get that accolade. But remember, there are other people coming up behind you that is more hungry than you, and they'll snatch that from you. So getting something is great, but maintaining it and really multiply it and kind of make it into something even better than what you got and how you got it is the next step, you know. So for me, it's a ever living, ongoing process of continuous improvement and upliftment going forward. Yeah.
And what would you say is something you wish you had known when you were 18 years old, since you have so much knowledge now and insight?
Wow, that's quite interesting. And I think my friends, we talk about that occasionally when we in some conversations, when we're exchanging ideas. Is if I'd known 18 when I was 18, how one easy it was to set up a certain type of business. If I'd known how easy it was to really do networking and gain that confidence quicker, to kind of go out and network with people, I would have been in a different space right now. Um, I wish I'd known at that point how to really do a great pitch, because even at that point I had a lot of business ideas. I was born in my parents' business and then move on to college, you know, and was doing lots of stuff in college by photocopying, printing, etc. Printing, selling refreshments in college. So I was an entrepreneur from birth, I would say, really. But what would I do differently if I knew now? Yeah, those are some of the things I would have done differently in terms of my thought process and my thinking. I probably would have been on another path, but I would still potentially be in business, but I'll probably be in business earlier and probably be in a different field. So whether that be architecture, medical arena, and as well as the legal field. And that's one of the key things actually around what I would have done differently. I probably would have been a lawyer and have my own law firm, because I've always wanted to be in law, and I've just got my qualification in law over a year ago. So not too late. It's never too late, but with knowledge at a certain point in your life, your trajectory would be very, very different. And again, this is something that me and my friend always talk about, you know, where you are now in life, regardless of what you see going on around you and what you're doing, it's exactly where you're meant to be now. And if something else had happened along the way, you'd probably be in a different zone, a different country, a different place, a different mental state. But wherever you are now, that's where you're exactly meant to be. And yeah, that's a very interesting point.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. It's just even for me, networking is something that I wish I had started earlier, because you know everyone that you meet was once a stranger. So it's just having that open and transparency, because everyone wants to, you know, learn from each other. It's just we have to take the next step and go ahead and reach out.
Sure, definitely, yeah.
Is there anything else you want to tell our listeners?
I would say whatever headspace you're in and whatever aspirations you've got, you know, just keep on pushing at it, because at the end of the day, only you will know and have that conviction for what you want to do, right? So if it's something whereby you're at a certain age or a point in your life, just keep going. And trust me, there are times when it feels like you need to give up, and because it's just been so long, it's just been you on your own doing whatever you're doing, and there are a lot of naysayers around you. Just keep focused, filter out naysayers, and if your conviction is strong enough and you have that ambition to push on and get that going, just go for it. Network and reach out to people, whether it be people who you think that could help you or people who you think that can connect you, because we're living in a world now where the 6 degrees of separation has been demolished, right?
Yes.
I know someone who you may know, and vice versa. So just ask for help. Gone are the days when you ask for help and you feel embarrassed and people may laugh at you or just turn you down. But hey, that's what brings you up and and allow you to be stronger. So just keep at what you're doing, whatever that is, because every day, every time you work at that, that gets you closer to whatever that goal or ambition is. And just believe in yourself, because that again is another thing: self-belief, networking, and be true to yourself and what you want to do to change the world or to change something small that makes an impact to somebody else in a positive way.
Mm-hmm. And where can people follow you if they want to find out more about your journey?
So they can follow me on LinkedIn, and it's the URL linkedin.com/ and it's the Clinton Walker. And I'm on Instagram at Walker Boy, so it's WALKERBWOY. And I've also got a new podcast as well, which is on YouTube, which is TalkInfoSec.com. So it's TalkInfoSec, which is cybersecurity.com. But LinkedIn is the best place to reach me. So if you search for Clinton Walker there, or the Clinton Walker, you'll get me on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much for your time and coming on the Big Cat Lounge podcast.
Great stuff. I love it. I enjoyed it, and for me, sharing knowledge is really key, because as you asked earlier, what would you change now that if you're 18 and compared to now? If I knew some of the things and how accessible information was at that time, I would be a different person, a different path. And I hope whatever I've said and shared here help at least one person to kind of rethinking themselves and motivate them and inspire them. So I really appreciate sharing my time with you and going through these areas with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And the Big Cat Lounge community appreciates it.
We are accepting applications if you think you have what it takes to be a big cat and be a guest on the show. Email us at bigcatlounge@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to the Big Cat Lounge podcast. Hope to see you soon.